Well, I made it to the Lake of the Clouds hut, and I am in a bunker house, which they call the dungeon, and it's a unique spot. But a caretaker just came over to me and said that this is off limits to hikers, and so that's really unfortunate because I was planning to stay here, and so that kind of stinks that we can't because the weather is not the best. And so I'm gonna have to go find a place to camp. They directed me to some places to check out, and so that's the plan. But I wanted to show you what the dungeon looks like because it really does kind of look like a dungeon. It's got 6 bunk beds, and the floor is covered in ice. This is a sheet of ice. And because of COVID, they said they're not allowing hikers to be in there, but I don't know if you could see a little more. That's just solid ice, and the bottom 2 bunks are filled with ice and water. So, but I was looking forward to staying here, so, oh well. But close this dungeon door and go try to find a stealth spot to camp, because I'm not going to go any further. The rain is supposed to come, and there's supposed to be some thunderstorms on the way, so I'm going to go try to find a place to hunker down and brave the elements. But it's been a good day of hiking, and I'm glad I'm here. It took a long time to get here. But I'll check in after I get all set up. Hey everybody, so I am in my tent and set up for the night. I was gonna stay at the dungeon at the Lake of the Clouds hut, but they are not allowing anybody to stay there, which I think is crazy because there have been thru hikers that have stayed there this year already, but and especially in this crazy weather. I don't know if you could see the wind is going a little nuts, so it's going to be an interesting night. Hopefully I'll stay warm enough. I think I'll be okay, but it's going to be a challenge for sure because it rained all day today, so everything's kind of damp. But so be it, and I will make do as best I can. But tomorrow I'm going to summit Mount Washington, so that will be exciting. It's supposed to continue to be really windy, so we'll see how that is, and we'll check in with you guys tomorrow. All right, stay warmer than I will. Hey everybody, so the conditions got worse, and the wind and the rain were absolutely crazy, and the wind kept pulling all the stakes out of my out of my tent, the tent stakes to keep it in the ground. And the wind, I've never seen wind and rain like this before ever. So it kept flapping open my tent, and the rain kept getting inside and got everything wet. So I had no other choice but to come back to the Lake of the Clouds and sneak into the dungeon spot. So I'm not sure if the caretakers saw me come in or not, but regardless, I'm not leaving because these conditions are way too harsh for the equipment that I have. I can't even keep my tent up because the wind is just, I have no idea how many miles an hour this wind is, but it is the worst I've ever seen. And then the rain is just, it just drenches you in seconds. So I am in it's the basement of the Lake of the Clouds, referred to as the dungeon. and this is where I'm going to be. This is where I am, this is where I'm staying. And this is where I'm going to be until I can hike out early tomorrow morning. So that is the plan, and I'm hoping to dry out as much as I can, but at least I'm out of the elements, so I'm thankful for that. So that is what happened. Always an adventure. Everybody, hope you're doing all right. I am happy to be out of above tree line. Oh my goodness, it has been quite an adventure. I can't say a very good adventure, so I thought I would make a quick video and just kind of explain what has been going on and why I look so exhausted. I just got down the mountain of Madison Mountain, which is near, I just did the Presidential Range, which is right after Mount Washington, and boy was it a challenge, holy cow. So today it turned out to be a beautiful day, but that was not the case yesterday and last night. So let me tell you the story real quick, what happened. Yesterday it was rainy and not optimal conditions, but not terrible. I was watching the weather closely, and it was a steady rain most of the day, and then in the afternoon it was supposed to clear up a little bit, which it did, and then possibly rain again. So I did a shorter day. I wanted to get to Lake of the Clouds hut so that I could stay in what they call the dungeon. It's an emergency bunk for hikers. It's always been there. It's supposed to be always open. And so I wanted to get to that hut and that shelter to stay there. So I got there, started hiking early, got there early, and as soon as I got there, a caretaker came outside and said that I could not stay there. And I asked her why not, and she said for COVID reasons they have it closed and they haven't cleaned it. And I said, well, I've stayed at the Lonesome Lake hut and I did a work for stay there. I'd be happy to clean it. I'll be happy to do whatever you want, but I really needed to stay in that shelter, especially because of the weather. And she said no and sent me away. And so I hiked on a little further, found as good of a stealth spot as I could. It was early in the day, but I wanted to get all set up before the really bad weather hit, and I did. I got my tent set up. I pitched it real low to the ground so I could it was already windy, so I wanted to try to combat the wind and deal with that. So I'm all set up. Everything is going fine. I got all my gear out and together, and just finished eating my food, and then all of a sudden the wind was insane. The wind picked up and it was so windy. It was the windiest conditions I have ever been in. So much so that the wind actually pulled up my tent stakes, and so my tent is wide open and flapping in the wind. And of course Mother Nature decided to open the skies and pour rain. And right at that, I mean, this all happened in a matter of like a few minutes, and everything got wet. I got wet, my sleeping bag, everything in my tent was wet. I scooped up everything, threw it into my pack, and hiked back to Lake of the Clouds. Oh, and did I mention it was about 34-35 degrees with insane wind. So it was not ideal conditions to be out and not good to be wet. I thought I was okay. I was not. I ended up going back to the Lake of the Clouds, I didn't even go in there to talk to anybody. I just went straight to the bunk room, also known as the dungeon. And it's like a basement. It's real dark and damp. It has ice on, like a few inches of ice on the floor. So it's not like a nice little cozy bunkhouse, but it's an emergency bunkhouse. It's for bad weather, and that area notoriously gets really bad weather. This is right before the summit of Mount Washington. So, and there's been a lot of fatalities on this mountain in trails leading up to this area, 161 to be exact, if you want to know. But, and that's with lots of different causes, not just from weather, but a good majority of those is from hypothermia and from falls. So it's real conditions. Like you need to be careful. So I went into the dungeon and I was going to stay put there no matter what, because I was wet. I wasn't just damp, I was wet. Everything I had was wet. The temperatures were dropping, the wind was picking up, and that is a dangerous combination. I am unfortunate that I got into that position, but it was my plan all along to stay at that bunkhouse. But and it's supposed to always be open. They're not supposed to ever close it. And people already this year had been staying in it. I saw comments on Guthook. So I don't know what was wrong with that caretaker, but she wouldn't let anybody stay there. So I stayed there that last night, and I was freezing cold most of the night. You still get a draft in there, but it was better than being outside. So I did not sleep very well last night. I was so cold, woke up a lot when I did get to sleep. So I am exhausted today. I am so tired. And then, so then this morning, I was really fretting about the weather conditions because the wind was insane. And I wasn't sure if I could safely summit Mount Washington and the presidentials today, but I waited a little while and then decided to go for it. Obviously it worked out, because I'm about 4.5 miles away from Pinkham Notch, and so that's where I'm going to end the day. But it was quite a journey, quite a wild ride, and really nerve-wracking, I'll tell you the truth. The weather conditions can turn so suddenly and so quickly. You must be prepared and be careful. The hut's officially open in a few days, but there are caretakers at many of them. And I did not and do not expect to do a work for stay there, but I did know and expect to stay at this emergency shelter, especially if the weather was bad, which it was bad weather. So that was kind of the fiasco that happened there. But I stayed there, everything worked out, everything was fine. It was an uncomfortable night, but it could have been much, much worse. So, yep, so that is what happened, and was able to hike out of there today, luckily. I mean, I had a backup plan. If I had to, I was going to try to get a ride off the mountain, off of Mount Washington, or take a side trail that would be 3 miles down to a parking lot. I was considering all of these options because the weather was that bad up there, and I was really concerned. Luckily, I dried out overnight for the most part. I was still kind of damp this morning, but if you stand in that crazy wind for more than 5 minutes, everything was pretty much dry. So that wasn't a problem, the wet conditions. But it's tough hiking, I will say. It's a lot of rock scrambling, a lot of elevation, and it's not easy. And you must be careful doing these sections in the White Mountains, especially that section, if the weather is bad. And at each of the huts, they have the weather posted. And I was looking at that. I stopped at each hut, especially the ones that were open, and I checked the weather because it can change suddenly, and the weather conditions even changed from that. Nobody was expecting the winds to be that strong and crazy last night and early this morning. So you just never know. You never know. So you've got to be prepared. You've got to be super careful. Always have backup plans. Let people know where you are and check in with them. Luckily, I had my friend Mike. Thank you, Mike, for all of the support and help you give me. It's just, I can't thank you enough for all of that. And my husband, Matt, he was keeping track too and making sure I was okay. So I did have a support system, luckily, and we didn't have to do anything further with it because everything worked out. But it could have been a really dangerous situation very fast. And I just wanted to explain this story to you so that when you guys get to this section of the trail, that you guys are super careful, prepared, and ready for it. Because it's no joke out here. When you get, oof, I'm so tired, I'm gonna topple over. Maybe I should hold on to this tree. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna sleep so good tonight. But I forgot what I was gonna say. But just be prepared. Be prepared for this section and for this area, because you never know what Mother Nature's gonna throw at you, and you gotta just be ready. All right guys, I'll check in later.